Okay, thank you very much indeed, James. What I have here is a statement from Garvin Nicholas, who's the Trinidadian High Commissioner to the UK. Now, he was due to be here today and he could not attend, so he's actually sent a statement in his place. However, the statement is quite lengthy, so therefore I will not read out the statement. What we will do is just place it on the EMLD website if anybody wishes to access that and to read exactly what they're saying. Basically, they're not happy with the proposed increase, and they're giving their social and economic reasons why that's the case. What I'd like to do now is to open up the discussion and debate. We've got 20 minutes left, and I'd ask people to be as quick as they can to try and allow other people to get in, and we'll try and get sort of some good responses from the panel. So who wants to go first? Okay, one.
Can I just ask how, if an effort was made to get a representative from any of the environmental organisations for the panel? I'm just interested to know, it just seems a tad...
It is a bit one way. I don't know about what else from me, but just on the environmental thing, I'd like to nail that one a little bit, because I don't think we should have a kind of collective guilt about flying. I think we've got to remember the actual difference of perception between what flying does and the actuality. And the perception is that aviation is single-handedly destroying the planet. If you keep flying, before you know it, the seas are going to rise, and single-handedly this one sector has brought us all to calamity, which is not the case. If you stop flying in the UK, you stop 0.1% of global carbon emissions. So if we all stop flying tomorrow, we can take a leadership role in this, and we're not saving the planet in any way whatsoever. 2% of UK flying is the figure of global flying. So we're doing all these measures, we're constraining ourselves like Bilio, whether it's environmental measures, whether it's tax, for something that isn't that big a problem. Now these problems in terms of global aviation's contributions to them, that's not UK bodies saying it. This is the interpanel climate change, or interpanel climate change panel, whatever it's called. It's saying that it's 2% now, and if you carry on at the current rate, we'll go to 2.5% until 2050. So we've got to get off this hang-up that somehow aviation is single-handedly destroying the planet. Of course we've got to do our thing. EU emissions trading scheme makes sure that we as a continent get our our carbon emissions down. So we're going to be doing that. The aviation sector in the UK is in itself doing things to make sure it reduces its carbon emissions. We have a coalition called Sustainable Aviation Alliance. It's airlines, it's airports, it's aircraft and engine manufacturers, it's air transport control, that show how we can get cleaner, quieter, smarter flying. And we don't have to do that. We're voluntarily showing you what we can do. And we can be world leaders in green technology. But we've got to get off this hang-up that somehow the UK aviation sector is destroying the planet. 0.1%. Keep that figure in your mind whenever you have this discussion.
Can I just say that actually I'm a supporter of the aviation, but it was just something that I was slightly surprised.
It was a procedural question about the organisation.
Before I take any more questions, and I do want to get on to questions very quickly, we've got someone who's travelled all the way from Reading here who has got a lot to say about the air passenger duty. Can I just introduce Chalker, Uda Chalk, who's come from Reading, is it? Yeah. She's come from Reading. Would you like to say a few words, Uda? Because I know you're very passionate about this issue before we get back into questions.
Yeah, I am a bit passionate.
Would you like to just stand up so people can see? That'd be very nice.
Travelling all the way from
On the train.
on the train.
Oh,
Yeah. and then Warren, my co-partner in travelling here, he made me climb so many steps, and now I am really knackered. My husband told me never to use that word, knackered. I don't know why. Anyway, okay. Back to reality. I'm passionate about air duty tax. I'm a member of the local Lib Dem party for, I think, 5 or 6 years now. But my concern at the moment is APD, air passenger duty. But James Jennings have already galvanized all what I was going to talk about, so I don't need to repeat myself again. And my focus at the moment will be just to touch on aspects of how it affects the Caribbean people and Africa as well, you know. But as I said, my focus will be on Afro-Caribbean, the impact it has had on the Afro-Caribbean people in general. And I think what Graham have talked about, the evolution, what's happening in the island and Scotland. We don't need evolution, we need a revolution in order to revolutionize rather than what's the right word? Revolution, evolution. And what's the word you use?
Devolution.
Devolution.
Yeah.
So we need a revolution, right? Because taxing people is higher tax is not the answer. People just can't afford it. With unemployment and if you know people in the Caribbean, the majority of people in the Caribbean are out of work. They're not working. And with unemployment, the economy climate, it affects everybody, not just Caribbean people, but people in general who want to travel to the Caribbean. So I think we ought to look again of ways of how to, some technology, science and technology, for cleaner air, so we don't have the pollution, and then we who are travelling don't have to be the scapegoat for paying for people's non-revolutionary insight. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Question, can I have one at the back? Alison?
Okay,
Shaz?
it's Judith Allen. I come from the south, and I'm very much a supporter, like Southampton. And for us grannies, we may like to go and visit family with a little to take with us. So it is so important. We've massed it, not just sending something mingy for Christmas, Easter, or whenever time it people is. And it just is, well, unfair. It's not a bad word for what has been dumped on us. But much support. Don't have too many, because there's only one sky. Southampton, EasyJet.
Okay.
But it's much nicer for the grannies to know where they're going.
Thank you. Can I suggest what we do is we take the questions and then respond in one go? That would be better. Alison?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you've sort of engaged with or got any support from either physically or legally from the interfaith community with regards to how this impacts on people's human rights for freedom of religious expression, etc. So although I don't need to travel out of this country for my religious and philosophical expression, other people do.
Okay.
And surely that's, are there some discriminatory legal issues here where it's being, unfairly targets people disproportionately?
Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to pick up on a point that you alluded to, which is that there isn't very much knowledge out there about APD. So what would be really useful is to have some facts and figures about how it's applied, because it's obvious that it gives rise to a lot of inequities with the LA, etc. situation, and the law of unintended consequences as well, flying to Frankfurt instead of flying to London. So some facts and figures would be really very useful, and we need to emphasise the fact that it is a regressive taxation. That's so I think some real fact would be very useful. The second thing is on the environmental issue. I am really disheartened to hear all of this pro-aviation stuff here. Actually, it is a small part of the contributor to greenhouse gases, but we do know that contrails contribute far more to the environment because of where they're placed, and the impact is far greater than what you're suggesting. And I think it's a real shame that we don't have any good representation here. And the other thing is its projected growth of the aviation industry. That's been totally disregarded here also. It's a very fast-growing industry, and we really need to bear down on that if we're going to make an impact on reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
Thank you, Shaz. Thank you. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah?
What I was going to say, obviously, about the environmentalists, all right, planes, aviation does pollute the environment, but one thing is there's a lot of pollutions. There's a choice. Like if you catch a bus to work, if you drive to work, you could catch a bus or cycle. For a lot of aviation journeys, particularly if you're flying to the Caribbean, you can't really cycle to the Caribbean or catch a bus to the Caribbean. So I think there is justification on saving pollution from things where there are real alternatives. Like if you can encourage people to adopt greener lifestyles and get people to cycle to work, for instance, or take public transport, that's where you can actually
offset in different ways
rather than
acknowledge
cutting long distance flying where you have where there is no alternative.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Well, thanks. I think as has been said, that there's no sort of greenie here, so I feel duty bound to put some sort of alternative view. It was very refreshing, James. Thanks for your honesty. We've got a shareholder and I think 2 employees of the aviation industry here. So I kind of feel a duty to sort of present some alternative. I mean, no one wants to pay more tax, or very few people want to pay tax. So perhaps in that respect, we should extend not paying tax on fuel to car drivers, to follow that argument. I feel that we've got a cynical use here of the Caribbean population and other BME groups who are being used as a human shield by the airline industry. That really that sticks in my throat. I mean, we've long established the principle of the polluter pays, and James's argument that students from far afield can come to British University. That's a great thing. But let's remember, they're the families of the global elite who come to the UK, and I don't see that. Okay, well I'm making the case. I'm making the case. I hear a grumble, but I'm making the case that if you can afford to send your children to a university in a foreign country, you're in the top 10% of the population of the world. Maybe that's a conversation that we can have at a later stage. I don't know if other parties are going to be campaigning. I understand. I mean, obviously, I'm an elected councillor. I don't want to be losing votes, so I kind of find myself in with 2 hats here. I don't want to be upsetting my voters in my ward or further afield. But I wonder will other parties be knocking on doors and be going, oh, those Liberal Democrats, they've raised your taxes, so you should vote for us. I think that there are green groups and other environmental groups and other political parties who will stifle that conversation. Obviously, the airline industry will be lobbying hard. Government, especially Conservative government. I don't know if there'll be maybe there will be successful with other political parties. And finally, and I'm pleased to hear that word. Finally, the cost of flying. I mean, when we think about immigration post-war immigration to the UK, we think of the Windrush generation. And you think of the cost then of a flight from the Caribbean or from Pakistan to the UK, and I guess that would have been 1 or 2 or maybe 3 weeks' wages. More. Air flight now, because of the hard work of these guys and respect to you for reducing the cost of air flight, it's become like a mass transport, and it's become effectively a consumer item. And the idea of polluter pays. Oh, I've just thought of another point I wanted to make. The idea of the polluter pays, I think, is established as a shrine. And I think it's something that we should retain. I've got other points, but perhaps I'll say those later.
Thank you. Can I just ask that we've only got 4 minutes left now? What I really want to do is to go through the remaining questions and give the panel a quick chance to come back on.
Mine's very short and brief anyway. It's regards, Darren? Yeah, Darren, you mentioned on statistics and people questioning or not questioning. My question is,
statistics,
statistics in general, people.
Oh, that's not the UK PLC statistics.
Yeah, and you said no one. Who is questioning?
Yeah.
My point of view is, why isn't people questioning the statistics? And should there be a body to look at it independently?
Okay, thank you, Morgan.
I'd just like to know, you I think 2 of the panels especially mentioned the ETS, the emissions trading scheme. The problem I haven't followed the issue too closely, but isn't it being roundly rejected, notably by the British example? China, I believe, is being accused of cancelling an Airbus order worth 12 billion.
Yes, that's right.
Because the EU is bringing the ETS. Couldn't it be argued the ETS actually does more damage to the aviation industry? Yeah. Or at the very least, is there a way that we can convince other countries to prefer the ETS to an air passenger duty.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Just
Yeah, excellent.
Just two questions, if I may. One is that, from what I can determine, the growth in passenger numbers goes on year, so it doesn't really seem that they've reacted to the tax. And secondly, if it's a matter of perception, why not get rid of it and call it VAT instead?
Okay. Oh God. It- Just one question.
To open up a plant looking at alternative fuel for aviation.
Best interest to do it, and it will happen.
On the fuel.
They can't get those critical investments.
Unfairly applied, and that's something that needs to be addressed.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Can I come back to the panel? We're really up against time now. If you can be as brief as possible, any responses to the questions would be most great.
Okay, I'll start off, yeah. Lady over there mentioned about interfaith issues. That is absolutely right. There hasn't been a regulatory impact assessment on this current proposal. The last one was done in 2009. It was absolutely rubbish, so because it didn't take into account the actual thing.
So I was just thinking, is sometimes when it impacts disproportionately, that can be actually legal.
Yeah. Yes, they haven't done
so
that, or it hasn't been revealed. Yes. There was a lot in terms of Gaz's point. Yes, there's very little knowledge to important that the debate is widened. It's been kind of like an industrial debate in terms of consumer groups, etc. So it needs to be wider up to the wider community. So I agree with that.
You're not going to go to answer every single question in the time.
Yeah, so I can't. But
Just a broad statement.
Issues about. Sorry, there's one issue about tax on fuel. Internationally, you can't do that. International civil aviation thing, you can't do that. The air service agreements between countries, that doesn't allow that, so that's difficult. So I'm going to leave it there. And
right. Thank you, Jay. Graham, you want to just come back with a statement?
Yes, first of all, the gentleman about the ongoing growth. We have gone through blood, sweat and tears to get Newcastle Airport to where it is now. It took us 73 years of our 75-year history to get to 5.7 million. And then in the space of 3 years, we lost 1.3 million of those 5.7. So it has had an impact in the regions. That's the first point. Secondly, APD and ETS is a double whammy. The UK is the only country in the world that has got taxation at this level. It is way out of proportion with the rest of Europe, and then elsewhere in the world there is just nothing to compare to APD. So, it's not just. I don't think the human shield comment's unfair. I've actually not used this particular issue in the APD debate. I've focused on regional impacts. This is just another angle. But the key thing is, we've got a level of tax that is out of proportion to every other country in the world. And what is that doing to the country's competitiveness?
Thank you very much indeed, Graham. Darren?
I'd just try and take what the general thing that came through was one, debate and representation of a fair debate. I totally agree with that. I'm so confident that if you have the debate and the facts and figures out there, that actually aviation will get a better hearing than what we're getting currently, because I think a disproportionate amount of the hearing is to people who are opposed to aviation and flying. And any figure I think someone else mentioned, I totally agree. I'm very confident about it. I think we have to be fair about what UK aviation does in terms of contribution in terms of the environment. We pay, I think it's £8 to £9 billion in tax to the Chancellor. Our impact, independently assessed, is about £1.8 billion. So we are actually massively overpaying in terms of our contribution to UK PLC and taking into account the environment. So we've got nothing to hide on that area. Going forward, as Graham says, it's in our own interest as a sector to be able to grow without having a disproportionate impact. And say oil will run out, so we've got to look at that. But I keep going back to this overall point. We can grow as a sector. We can be connected, we can help our economy and still deliver what you guys want to see in terms of our environmental mitigation and carbon emissions and noise. The point about nitrogen oxide is quite an interesting one. if you take that into account, and the science on that isn't totally clear, which is why there's still debates about the additional impact, I think it was Shaz who made the point. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, so I'll get it right this time, they say that it might take you up from between 2 to 3% now in total to 2.5% in 2050 to maybe 4 or 5%. Now that's not to say we shouldn't look at it and we should do everything we can in our power to reduce our impact, but we've got to get this in perspective. The major contributions to environmental carbon emissions are cars, are industrial, are commercial, are residential.
Yeah.
It's not flying that's causing this, the prime movers. You've got to put it in perspective is my main message. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you all very much indeed for attending. This discussion and debate will continue. Thank you very much.